Franchise is presented by FakeShep.net with support from Resell. If you're looking to buy an iPhone, iPad, MacBook, or any other Apple product, visit Resell today. They offer refurbished, top-of-the-line and next-to-new Apple products at a fraction of the regular price. And if you're looking to sell an Apple product, they'll buy them off you too. Visit mresell.com.au.
Toasting with stuffing, I've got sprinkles on it.
Excuse me. I don't understand a word you're saying.
No, I just came back from the dentist and left in the cotton balls.
I will take these cotton balls from you with my hand and put them in my pocket.
Yeah.
Yep, this is Franchised, the only podcast in the world where you get the added bonus of Dom DeLuise as Don Giovanni from Robin Hood Men in Tights. And that's about it. We've maxed out our comedy quota for this episode. My name's Glenn, and we're here to discuss one of the most talked about films of all time and talk about it some more. The Godfather. This is the podcast dedicated to sequels, prequels, and equals with occasional sidequels, spin-offs, and rip-offs. Jarrett is here with me. We are FakeShep.net, and because this is one heck of a weighty film property, we've called in some help from a person we consider to be the godfather of The Godfather, Keith Schultz. So the question is, will my love of second-rate sequels be my undoing? There is only one way to find out. Stick around as we get serious with The Godfather.
Well, I think I have a thrush.
What the fuck is a thrush?
Farewell, dear shithead.
No fucking shit, lady! Do I sound like I'm wearing a piece of shit?
Lick my plate, you dog dick!
What is it with men and the Godfather?
The Godfather is the I Ching. The Godfather is the sum of all wisdom. The Godfather is the answer to any question.
Well, welcome to possibly the most serious episode of Franchise we've ever had. I think it's safe to say that I have bitten off more than I can chew by selecting this podcast. I feel like I'm out of my depth. But this is the podcast that you can't refuse. And look, I'm going to give you some context to this one. There is a special guest with us. His name is Mr. Keith Schultz. Keith, how are you?
I'm great. Glenn, how are you?
I'm pretty good. Jarrett, how are you?
I'm pretty good.
And the reason I chose this particular podcast, because let's face it, The Godfather is not the kind of franchise we would normally cover on this show. However, Keith and I, we work together. And I don't think there is a single conversation we have at work where The Godfather doesn't come up.
No, I have to admit, I've managed to find a way every time to sort of get it in there.
And if it's not The Godfather, the debate is raging about what is the better film, Apocalypse Now or The Deer Hunter.
That's it.
Right, okay, yeah.
So
right.
where do Jarrett, throw you under the bus.
Yeah,
Where do you
yeah.
stand on that?
I've been desperate to revisit Apocalypse Now because it's been a number of years, but I'm holding out for the final cut. That'll be my next opportunity at the movies. I probably have more recently seen The Deer Hunter. But they're so different. Both films are so different.
One's better than the other, surely.
Apocalypse, of course.
I'm probably gonna go with Apocalypse Now because I think I've seen it more because there's been there's been two variations of it and.
Have you got
cinema?
Some kind of rag where I can wipe that smug look off Keith's face right now?
We need to stop it now.
So you're a massive Coppola fan then, yeah?
Love Coppola. Well,
Yeah, right.
from a particular era, I'm probably more of a snob in that regard.
Yeah, he loves Jack. Apparently Jack is where it's at.
Jack's the
I've never seen it with Robin Williams.
He doesn't like Jack.
Oh, okay. My wife loves it. I've been meaning to watch it. We picked it up on DVD. I'll get there.
With the legendary Bill Cosby is in that one.
Yeah. It's a type of film Glenn would call misunderstood.
That sounds like the Glenn I know.
Yeah. Okay, well, all right. Anyway, like I said, bitten off more than I can chew, but let's try to get through this anyway. The conversation could be endless or it could be very short. We'll see. So let's begin with The Godfather, 1972, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, based on the novel by Mario Puzo, starring Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, James Caan, Robert Duvall, Diane Keaton, amongst others. So I don't think the film needs any introduction. Keith would say it doesn't.
No, I wouldn't.
Well, I'm gonna lay out the synopsis from Google, just for those few people that haven't seen it, and it goes as widely regarded as one of the greatest films of all time. This mob drama, based on Mario Puzo's novel of the same name, focuses on the powerful Italian-American crime family of Don Vito Corleone, Marlon Brando,
When the Don's youngest son, Michael Al Pacino, reluctantly joins the mafia, he becomes involved in the inevitable cycle of violence and betrayal. And although Michael tries to maintain a normal relationship with his wife Kay, Diane Keaton, he is drawn deeper and deeper into the family business. Right, so where should we start with this one? We'll do the usual Jarrett question.
Right.
First memory of The Godfather.
Television, to be honest. Although, we rented... we were renting videos from the minute I was born. Around the same time I was born was when we got a VCR. And so we were renting films, but for whatever reason, The Godfather we never rented it. So I ended up catching it on TV, and I think it was the scene with, the horse's head in the bed, with the producer discovering that. And me seeing that and going, because I'd just seen the lead up and the context of that scene and going, this is amazing. I've got to watch this. So it would have been would have probably been about 88 or so.
Yeah,
I
right.
reckon, because it was before I saw like Goodfellas, Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas. So, I hadn't seen too much set within sort of like a mafia sort of crime family sort of thing. And it was a lot to take in as an 8-year-old.
Fucking
like
oath
a
it is.
massive universe. What a movie.
Yeah.
And I think, I dug it the first time and then went straight head on into Godfather 2, and I think that went over my head. And that took me a couple more years to kind of appreciate. I think because of the timelines and things were really sort of unsettling. But I was like 8, and weirdly enough, I think I had seen maybe a handful of other Coppola films prior to that. Like I'd seen The Outsiders because my sister had studied that at high school and read the book and watched the movie, so I'd seen that. I think I saw Rumblefish. Oh, of course, I had seen the best Francis Ford Coppola film, Peggy Sue Got Married, featuring a very young Sofia Coppola. Not as young as Godfather 2
right.
Sofia Coppola.
Save that, because I'm going to get to favourite Coppola films a bit later.
Right.
Spoiler alert. With Jared. It's funny you say like the horse head and all that earlier, because I think the first 20 minutes to half an hour of The Godfather is some of the most profound cinema ever.
Yeah.
Like it really is a confronting, completely absorbing piece of drama for the first 20 minutes to half an hour. It's just hook, line, sinker. But what are your first memories, Keith?
My first memory of it would be probably seeing the poster in a year-by-year cinema book I had when I was about 10. And then my mission, I think something about the image and the just like hearing about the plot really grabbed me. So I suppose my mission from there was trying to sneak it out of Video Easy because it had that R rating. So being 10 or 11. So I had a couple of failed attempts of getting it. I should have come to your Video Easy.
Yeah, I would have
given it to me.
That's right.
But I remember sneaking, like conning my mum into getting it out and watching it from there. So I would have been about 11. And it just blew me away, really.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I'd seen part 2 first,
Right,
which
okay.
I enjoyed. I mean, as much as a 10-year-old can. But I mean, it's something about it just kind of drew me back to it. But I remember the first time I saw part 1 was conning my mum into getting it on DVD from Video Easy. And I loved it from the get-go. It's amazing. I mean, that horse's head scene in particular is incredible, which I think actually was born out of a mistake. I think Coppola, he said he read the book wrong. He thought it was hidden, but actually in the book it was just there on the bed when he wakes up. So you get that slow reveal, which is amazing.
It is amazing.
So it just works so well.
And that prolonged scream.
Yeah,
and then it cuts to outside, and you can hear him still screaming. It's such a good scene.
Great. Yeah.
My first memory, Keith's going to laugh at this, is the poster for number 3. So
Right,
I
okay.
remember going to the cinemas in that year. Was it
89, 90?
90, I think it was. I think I had gone to see something like Ghost or something like that, right?
Oh,
so
yeah,
it was a coming soon poster on the wall, and it was side by side, I think, with Exorcist 3.
Wow.
Right.
So I think they were the same year, and very similar posters in my mind at the time when I think back at it. And it was so, I actually still think the Godfather 3 poster is the best of the lot. The one with him in the chair right at the back.
Yeah. It's
I
like
love
a
that
really
image.
long
As a
shot.
poster.
As an
Yeah,
image,
yeah.
right? As an
Yeah.
image.
Right.
That to me just really
Yeah.
tickles my fancy. So that was my first memory. And then I went for years knowing what The Godfather was by that poster.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Having not seen the film. And then I reckon I would have been 16 when I saw it for the first time. And then did the trilogy, boom, 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 back to back. Yeah. So, and look, just for a bit of context to anyone listening to this, I'm not getting a blowjob. There is a dog in the room.
Yes.
Right. And occasionally in my lap. And that slobber is unfortunate for me.
That's it. Old Archibald.
That's right.
16's a good age to clock them, I reckon. It's a good age because you're old enough to get it.
Totally, yeah. 16 was a very, I guess, impressionable time for me. I was exposed to good cinema, in inverted quotations, from a very early age. But I think 16 is when I was discovering them on my own. So, like, my parents would expose me to some fantastic cinema growing up. And I loved it, but 16 is where I found it on my own. You know, like, I heard about The Godfather, I knew about The Godfather, so I tracked down The Godfather. And, anyway, so should we talk a little bit about the film itself?
The cake, beautiful, Bonifacio, beautiful. I want to thank you all for coming today. I know that many of you have put off important murders and drug deals to be here. I'm especially pleased to have representatives from the 5 families with us. The Bottolatos, the Romanis, the Marzonis, the Jeffersons, who moved on up from the east side to get themselves a piece of pie.
So apparently Sergio Leone was the original choice to direct this one, and he declined because he was doing Once Upon a Time in America, which arguably is one of the great
masterpiece itself. Yeah.
I'm actually not a big fan. I love Leone. That is my least favourite of his.
Really?
Wow.
I acknowledge that it's a good film, but it's just not my. It's not my cup of tea. I don't enjoy. It's not a film. I don't enjoy being in the company of those characters for however long it is. I'd much prefer. I'd take his westerns any day of the week.
Yeah.
But I admire the artistry, but.
That's a fair call. I'd take his westerns over them any day too. But,
Yeah.
other directors that declined were Peter Bogdanovich, who had just done The Last Picture Show.
Wow.
Yeah,
So that was a good contender.
Yeah.
Peter Yates, who'd done Murphy's War.
Yeah.
Richard Brooks, In Cold Blood. Arthur Penn, who did Bonnie and Clyde. And then Otto Preminger, who'd done Anatomy of Murder. Like, this is like...
Wow, what a caliber
Coppola
of
was not
directors.
even like
Yeah.
a consideration at
That's
first.
it.
But, he originally declined as well, Coppola, when he was asked to do it. But I think it was his financial situation that, forced his hand because THX 1138 made no money, put him in the shit, and he had to get himself out of it. So, interestingly too, Coppola ran out of money making the movie. He was over budget on the casting alone before the film had even started.
Wow.
Which is incredible. Is there anything you know about that you can shed light on?
Well, I know that in order to make it cheaply, Paramount wanted to set it contemporary in the 70s, so they didn't want that period piece, just to cut down on the costs, and they wanted to get out like a real cheap pot boiler. And it's got a very famous production backstory, doesn't it, with Brando. Like, I think Charles Baldwin, Paramount executive, said he would never be in this movie. It's like over my dead body sort of thing.
Yeah.
So he really had to fight hard, didn't he? But I don't know, they're definitely the cost restraints for sure.
I think it was something like $40,000 a day they were losing just in that early production phase.
Which is unbelievable.
Which is mental. And what had Coppola done prior to this?
He'd done The Rain People. Have you ever seen that?
No, I've never seen that.
So it's not a great film, but it's interesting. It's got James Caan in it. It's got Robert Duvall. So it's got the good characterization, which is what I think got him the role. But I think what kept him from being fired is that he won the Oscar for Patton, for best screenplay. So I think that kind of gave him a little bit of legitimacy.
So he definitely didn't get this gig off the back of Roger Corman films.
I was going to say.
Like Dementia 13.
Unfortunately not.
Arguably one of the great slasher films of all time.
Roger appears in the Godfather movie, doesn't he?
Is he in the first one?
He's in the second.
Second,
Yeah, he's on the Senate committee.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Mate, that guy pops his head up everywhere.
I know,
Doesn't he?
Yeah.
I only saw him on YouTube. No, Facebook yesterday. He popped up in a Lloyd Kaufman photo.
Crazy.
Just having dinner.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great to have dinner with those men?
That's it, yeah.
Oh, mate, would you ever put Lloyd Kaufman and Roger Corman in the same room? Can you imagine?
Yeah, there'd be some fireworks.
Amazing.
That's a room I want to be a fly on the wall and just watch all of what's going on.
Leading into this podcast, Jarrett, you recently revisited.
I did.
Like, what were your overall impressions just watching it again?
Well, watching all 3 installments, it had been probably a decade since I last watched them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always a commitment when you do because you want to see it out. Like, maybe you just want to watch the first 2 installments.
Yeah.
But even then, the first film runs at 180 minutes. The second film's just over 3 hours. It's 3.5 hours. And the funny thing was, I'd been putting it off. I'd been like, oh, this film's going to take a while to get through. I know they're great. Don't get me wrong, but it's going to take a while to get through it. And we fired through all 3 installments of the Godfather trilogy in a week. And I think we did Godfather on a Sunday night, and then on the Monday night we did Godfather 2.
Yeah.
I was just so ready for more.
Yeah.
I did put off 3 for a couple more days. But yeah, it's just incredible. This is the first time I've actually ever watched the films on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I'd only ever watched them on tape, or I'd never ever watched them on television outside of seeing those, scenes as a kid.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a grave injustice to put ad breaks in this movie. I mean, that obviously going to stretch the duration out even longer.
One of the networks screened it in Australia without commercials. I think there was one of those
that makes
screenings.
sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
It's always ballsy when they do that.
But no, just incredible. Like from the rich visual texture, the way it was shot, the film stock they used, the color grade they did on it. All those elements that
shadows and light are just incredible.
Phenomenal. In 1 and 2, phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then the audio mix on the Blu-ray, which was phenomenal. This 5.1 mix was like a Dolby True HD mix. I couldn't believe it. It was like one of the best audio mixes I had heard on like a back catalogue film ever.
Yeah.
We watched it in surround, and it just felt like when you've got those sort of celebratory scenes, the wedding and that sort of thing, it felt like we heard people talking around us. It was really immersive.
Wow.
I added an element to the film that I'd never experienced before, because I think I'd never watched them on DVD with, surround sound.
Yeah.
I just watched the DVD and had the sound coming through the TV.
Speaking of that wedding scene, that is one of the most, to me, profound moments in cinema. Like, there's a juxtaposition going on here where you've got something celebratory outside happening, like it's a joyous event, everyone's having fun, then behind closed doors, you've got some of the most terrifying moments where, what's his name, Luca Brasi comes in, asking for a favor. Like, the foreboding dread in that moment to me.
Absolutely.
I've watched this film maybe half a dozen times since I first saw it. I reckon this recent time is the most, it's really drawn me in with that particular moment. Realizing, shit, this movie really grabs you by the balls right from the get-go and doesn't kind of let go, just clench fist all the way through.
Absolutely.
And really clever writing
Yeah.
in terms of having these establishing scenes at the start of every one of the movies where you introduce all the key players, and it doesn't feel forced or like there's heavy exposition. It feels like everything's flowing naturally.
That's it. Like,
and everything comes
it's a real trick of the craft, isn't it? Because there is so much exposition going on.
Yeah,
you just
but
don't feel it
done
happening
so
Like,
well.
Yeah, like when Michael tells Kay about the Luca Brasi, he held a gun to his head. I mean, that's just a perfect example.
And he ends it with saying, "True story."
Yeah,
true story.
yeah.
Like,
And
it's the delivery.
Yeah, and then he's like, "Yeah, that's my family, Kay. That's not me." You know, right there. Okay, this guy's different. It's just amazing, just in that one line.
But that also right there is a great juxtaposition to the trajectory of his character.
Yeah.
Which,
absolutely.
They obviously flesh out more in the second film,
Yeah.
which we'll get to in a moment. I'm trying to think of, I had something else in mind with this one when we talked about the lighting and all that.
Right, yeah.
It's got a real sepia tone to this film.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
just-
Like
it's
a
glorious.
It's like a almost golden sort
Brassy,
of, it's beautiful. Like which is something I feel like maybe the third one lacks. It doesn't quite. Oh, it definitely doesn't. Like you watch those those two films, and they're real works of art.
I agree.
Because the period, and you saw films that have come out of that, so it's not indicative of the period.
Yeah.
It is the craft. It is like a specific look.
Yeah.
That has aged the film to look like the period in which it's set, and it's just incredible.
Yeah.
Gordon Willis, it's Albany Hall cinematography fam.
Wow.
But he's they nicknamed him the Prince of Darkness, didn't they? Because of those dark shots.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's nicknamed the Prince of Darkness.
Right.
Those dark shots, particularly in the boardrooms or in the offices where Michael is there. His face
Just
is
how he's
covered.
lit.
Yeah, and I think it was quite groundbreaking because a lot of people wouldn't like scenes like that, would they? Or it's too dark, but it just works perfectly.
Imagine seeing that on a cinema screen at the time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a different kind of projection back then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's the funny thing too. Even these films obviously came out in the period of 35mm film, and these prints would have travelled world round. Every now and again, they would have struck new prints for the films when they were reissued back into theatres and things like that, and for repertory screenings. But for a good part of their life, there would have been older prints that were travelling the world of these films and screening well ahead of digital projection. And you can only imagine what those prints that were on their last legs would have looked like. Like it really would have really fucked with the filmmaker's intention.
Absolutely,
The colour palette would have been blown out. But at the same time though, all of that, the age scratches and things like that would have probably added an extra sort of quality to it.
So in terms of characters in this first film, let's leave Al Pacino out of it because that's obviously a given. Who's your favourite character and who do you think is the most profound character?
Wow.
Keith.
I'd say outside of Pacino, my favourite character would be Tom Hagen. I think it's perfect casting because Robert Duvall does not seem like a gangster, does he? And even the way he plays him, he seems like a good man.
Yeah.
So it's funny. It's interesting that contradiction, isn't it?
He's definitely the orphan.
That's it, yeah. And we kind of see it. I suppose you kind of imagine yourself in his shoes a little bit. But I think he's a fascinating character, and his motivations are great. In terms of the most profound, it would probably have to be Brando, I think. I think, really, he's the... I mean, skipping to part 2, there's a different character that sort of carries the heart of the film, but I think he's definitely the heart of the film.
It's a profound performance.
Absolutely.
It's probably one of his best.
Oh, yeah.
I would say.
Incredible.
What about you?
Definitely my favourite character in it is Robert Duvall, because I think he's that moral compass.
Yeah.
Like, he's, you know that Pacino comes into it. Pacino is, this honourable, war veteran. Doesn't want to get involved in the family business and all that sort of stuff, slowly gets corrupt and becomes that. But Tom Hagen stays that sort of moral compass, kind of like, I can't do it, but this is what you could do, and this is what's around.
You can't get a sense when he goes off to do business for the family, he's giving those people the option out. Like he's saying, he's kind of giving them an out. Like, you could do this the right way or the wrong way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And he emphasizes what the right way should be.
Yeah.
And no one ever takes him up on it.
That's it.
Yeah,
I
love
think
that.
he genuinely believes, and I don't want to skip ahead to part 2, but that, he can legitimize the family business and be a part of that.
Yeah.
If that's the direction it's going to head. But I just love his character.
Yeah.
And I think he's terrific in part 1 and part 2.
He's great.
Yeah.
I often wonder, like, with his character, like, are you okay with this? At the end where Carlo gets garroted in the car.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you actually down with that, Tom? It's like, it's a fascinating character. Just seems out of place there for me. But, you need that character there, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. My favourite is definitely Frito. Like,
oh my God, what a hopeless...
Yeah, like, I don't know what it is. I like that kind of character.
I feel so bad for him all the time, but
absolutely.
it's like he is the idiot brother, and...
Totally.
Everyone
given
knows
so many
someone.
chances. And
not only that, like, I think too, like, I think if there's going to be, when we get to number 3, if there's going to be any sort of merit that we can extract from it, it's going to be the effect that his assassination had on Michael.
Yeah.
I think that kind of is what gives Michael his arc in the third one. But I just love, is it John Cazale?
John Cazale made 5 films, all of them Stone Cold
Dog Day Afternoon,
classics.
incredible.
Stone Cold classics,
Yeah.
mate.
Sorry,
And I'd say, let's take a moment though to acknowledge this man's career, because those 5 films were only over a 6-year
Was it
period.
Deer Hunter as well?
Yep.
We had The Godfather, The Conversation, The Godfather 2, Dog Day Afternoon, and The Deer Hunter.
Incredible.
Incredible. What a body of work.
And archival footage for Godfather 3.
Yep.
Like,
And he died of cancer, didn't he?
Yeah.
he did.
But who was he married to? Meryl Streep?
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't
it was
think
with
they were
Meryl. They
married.
were together.
And she was at his deathbed.
Which is
She finished him off.
kind of puzzled. Puzzled me though, because I was like, he wasn't an attractive man, but he
Not at
was
all.
a very talented actor, and
She's
he must
not
have
exactly
been.
an attractive woman, like.
Yeah, I don't know. It's sort of hard to say.
I don't know,
you
man. It's
She's
the
definitely
100 days.
definitely better or more attractive than her daughter. If that's any gauge, but like, I'm sorry, I don't want to sink this, this classy
you having
discussion
Ricky in
about
the
some
Flash
cinematic
flashbacks?
masterpieces, and then I'm,
Is this your Ricky in the Flash?
Ricky in the Flashback.
One of his favourite films.
I did really like that movie. It was one of my favourite films of 2015.
It was quite a good film.
Yeah, I really dig it.
Yeah. The new Wild Rose kind of reminds me of that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Wrong
Failure and
show.
redemption.
Wrong show for a digression.
Yeah, true.
But yes, he did. He died of lung cancer.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I reckon it's time to move on to number 2. What do you reckon?
As you know, I am obligated to grant one favor on this, the day of my daughter's wedding. While you ask me for this one and only favor, I will sit here and enjoy this very fine tiramisu.
Oh, can I have a piece?
Peter!
Granted. Next.
Oh, crap.
So, Godfather Part 2, 1974. Most of the cast return, with the addition of Robert De Niro as the young Don Corleone in a parallel story that tells of Don's childhood and immigration to America. The continuation of the first film depicting Michael's reign is also a factor. It's an interesting one. This, arguably to most fans, is the pinnacle of Godfather. This is one of the great films of all time, superior to the first. I think the first is the better one. But, anyway, I think if this was going to be a trilogy, if they'd broken part 2 into those 2 stories separately, I think you would have had a good 1, 2, and 3.
Interesting.
So,
Right.
Godfather 2 should have been the Robert De Niro story. Godfather 3
Right.
should have been the Michael story.
Interesting.
That's how I would have done a
Okay,
trilogy.
so like gone prequel and then gone
Yeah,
post.
and I understand that's not how the book was written. I haven't read the book.
I think the book contains. So I think the Michael side of part two, is totally original, and the prequel stuff with De Niro is in the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So therefore that makes more sense as well.
Yeah.
Like, have they have done that? But anyway, whatever. It's still a fucking great film, don't get me wrong. James Caan also returns for one flashback sequence.
Yeah.
Where he demanded as much money as he made for the entire first
And
film.
got it.
And got it.
Which is, to me, that scene seems needless. I kind of
Really?
Yeah, that's.
Oh, wow.
I thought it would just end really well with just Michael taking out all his, foes or whatever,
there
but
you
having
go.
that flashback sequence before he goes to war and having the whole family there, and him tell the family that he's enlisted. I don't know. Just sort of, I go, does it need to be there? Because like this was a good ending, and now this is just sort of like, I don't know.
And Brando was supposed to be in it
He
too,
was.
but he never showed up on the
bailed.
day.
Right.
Yeah,
Really?
because Paramount hadn't paid him his box office take from the first one.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's interesting. That's my favourite scene in the film.
Really? Wow. Like, I mean, it's not. I don't have a problem with the scene. It's just the placement.
What
of
is
it.
it?
It's
What-
kind of like
what-
it feels like the film ends, and then that feels like kind of like one of those Lord of the Rings moments. Like, here's the ending. Oh, but here's the
another
extra
one.
ending. And it's like,
Okay.
oh, but this is like throwing my timeline
Yeah.
out. Because I think the thing that I love, and I actually do prefer Godfather 2 to Godfather
Yeah.
1. I think it's just an exceptional film.
Hey, I'm on the
But
fringes,
the
mate.
timeline is just amazing. It's like it sort of set a precedent for like things, even modern day TV shows like Game of Thrones, where you can have these different timelines or different characters, but you feel like you've got enough of what you need
Cohesion
right
there.
now, but you want more, and then it works to the next timeline. You never feel like you're disorientated or
Yeah.
lost, and it always keeps you wanting
Yeah.
and delivers on both fronts. It never takes from the other. It
Yeah.
just works.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. Like, I think it's just incredible. It's like two perfect films in
Yeah,
one.
that's
It's
it.
just amazing. Which is probably what it's got up on Godfather for me. It's like I just feel like I watched two really amazing
for buck.
films.
Yeah.
And that also helps with the duration for it being, just over 300 minutes. 300 minutes, just over 200 minutes.
200, yeah.
It doesn't feel long because I feel like I'm just immersed in the past and the present. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
What is it about that scene that does it for you?
I think it's apart from it obviously being incredibly well written, I think it's great to show what he was. So I know what you're saying, but I
Oh,
think
yeah, yeah.
because you see the what he's become.
It's a good juxtaposition between that
Between
final moment.
loyalty and betrayal,
now.
kind of like
Yeah.
told in
family.
And then you go back,
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
it's funny how he's killed his brother,
Yeah.
but the only person that congratulates him for enlisting
That
is
is a bit
Fredo.
heartbreaking. I feel
It's
bad
just that it's
because
just
I do
yeah.
kind of. I don't know. I did want to see him die.
Yeah,
Because I'm like, this guy's got to be put to bed because
Yeah.
he's just more trouble than he's worth.
This is
and
the
then you
thing,
see
yeah.
that and you're kind of like, oh my god, I feel really guilty now because he was supportive of his brother.
People, that's it. But people always go. You always assume with Fredo that he didn't mean for that hit to happen on Michael, but if he did, then he probably deserved it.
Yeah.
Dog.
But I do love that scene. I just like and how Brando doesn't appear on camera. Actually, I think it benefits it.
Yeah.
Like, it adds to the mythology of his character that you'd never see him again.
Yeah.
It's all off camera.
So now
It's
that
a
we're,
great
we're at
touch.
part two, now that you're talking about that, I know the answer to this question, so it's stupid, but who's the better Godfather? Like, who do you think on screen is the more effective Godfather?
Oh, you mean in terms of the context of the plot of the
Just
film?
like as far as engaging you as a viewer, like who's the scarier Godfather?
Oh, definitely Michael.
Yeah.
I think is the scarier one.
Is that just because you've had more time with him?
I think so, yeah. Like, I think he's my favourite character in the film. Funnily enough, when I was a
Obviously,
kid,
yeah.
I used to love him.
Right.
Now when I watch
Yeah.
him, I'm like, mate, you are a stone cold dog. Well, I think he is the main. I think his performance is magnetic, and I think his character is magnetic. Like, some people say in part two that he becomes too much of a zombie, that there's not much character development there. I disagree.
Yeah.
I think you see him just go further inward. I think even Coppola said he was influenced by Nixon of that Watergate
Right.
period where he's bumping off his advisors in manner of speaking. He
Yeah.
becomes more and more paranoid. So I think he's probably the least likable of the two, but he, for me, is the more threatening figure. I can't imagine Vito's character ever doing some of the things that he did, if that answers the question.
Yeah, no, totally.
I feel
totally.
because for me, I'm in agreement with Keith on it, but I also feel too because although we do see the backstory of Vito, but at the same time, I feel like we haven't sort of seen as much between the current, Don in Godfather
Yeah.
and his backstory in Godfather 2. So I haven't seen certain things that have led him down a path. I think you know, he's a man of action and he gets things done, but we've seen Michael's slow corruption over time, and we know there's no turning back.
Yeah.
So I kind of see that, you know, not the evil, but I sort of see that, you know, he can't compromise, you know, and you know exactly he can't. But I got a question, a weird question.
Yeah.
Do you think Fredo knew that he was going to be bumped off when they're at the boat and the kid, and he said, "Oh, we're taking the kid to wherever," and then he still goes out, and you know, it's just a really, you know it as a viewer, but does he know it?
I actually thought about this last time I watched it. I reckon you could argue that he did, for sure. I think, I don't know, but I suppose, I mean, he ran away. I mean, after Cuba, didn't he? He gets pulled back in.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely implied that he knew. I think you could go either way, for sure.
It's just a matter of time, really. He probably knew that he was on thin ice. Which is going to happen.
Yeah. Which I think is the funny thing about part 2. I think it's much more ambiguous.
Yeah.
Like, even there are some things that happen in it that I still can't figure out. Like, who killed the 2 hitmen on Michael's compound? Is that supposed to be Fredo? Like, I've never figured that out.
Right,
it must be. But
it's funny you
like,
mentioned that, 'cause it's never really kind of touched on again.
That's it. You know? Yeah, you just kind of left to assume things. So which I think is the genius of the second one. It's much more subterranean in character arc, like a bit like Michael, you know. And some of the plot is kind of vague. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Do you think Michael ever got to the same stature as Brando as far as the character? Like, because when we meet Brando, he's well and truly the Don, and he is. It's just implied that he is one of the most terrifying men in the world. Like, in that universe.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think Michael ever got to that point that he's the same?
Is he as iconic in the character, or?
Like, so the opening scene of the first one and the opening scene of the second one are very similar. Where you've got the father and then the son.
Yeah.
Same scenario. Got a favour to ask. Do you feel that room, the tension in that room, ever got to the same as what it was with Brando, with Michael?
No, I think definitely you can tell Brando's character is much more loved and respected. Michael's not able to balance that, is he? That sort of warmth or respect with that terrifying aspect. He's kind of just the one on the right.
Yeah,
I think he's much more maybe dreaded in within that universe. But I don't think. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
A bit more reckless,
for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think he has that same sort of gravitas within that. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't. I think, to me, just like, if I was just to isolate those two scenes, I mean, I know that with the second film, it's still early in his Donhood, if you want to, for lack of a better word. I mean, if you want to take the comparison of that age, number 3 would be how old Brando was from the first film.
No, that's it.
But he wants to go legitimate in number 3, so it's a different kind of thing. No, I think just from watching it from the character interactions, I think Brando was the scarier of the two.
For sure.
I think with Michael, you kind of knew what you're getting when he answered.
Yeah.
With Brando, you know, you didn't know, it was ebbing and flowing between I could walk out here alive, or I could, or I could just be, you know, not make the door. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and that was where Tom was in the background, just ready, you know, to sort of clean things up.
That's it. Or even in part 2, that's shown, like when he goes to the cafe with Fanucci. You're not 100% sure that he's about to kill him, are you?
Yeah.
Or when he goes back to Sicily and knocks off the Don there.
Yeah.
That's another great scene.
Oh,
It's
great.
just ruthless. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so consensus is number 2 is the superior film.
No. See, this is a tough one for me. I love them both equally. If I had to, I reckon number 1 has definitely got the better plot, and I think it's definitely got the better story. I think, and I think Coppola knew there was no way he was going to match that. There's no way you're going to top that storyline. So I think I'd probably disagree with you, is that I think the reason part 2 is so good is that it has both, and I think both plot lines on their own are sort of flimsy enough.
Yeah.
But when you put them together, they it's greater than
They
the parts.
congeal.
That's it. Well, I think Coppola said he wanted to make a film about a father and a son at the same age, which I kind of think is what makes that film really sophisticated.
It does, definitely
but
does.
I do. It would be interesting to see them as part 2 and part 3, but I think the genius for me is that you go back and forth and it complements each other so well.
And
but
just historically speaking, I'm not a fan of alternating timelines in
Yeah,
film.
okay.
Like, it's just not something that floats my boat.
Right. Yeah.
Because I I kind of feel I'm taken away from something,
Yeah.
and I like
You're
to
right,
sort of
okay.
focus, and that's just
No, I know what you're
my
saying.
grudge to bear. But you
Yeah.
know, Godfather 2 is the first film in Hollywood history, I believe, to use a numerical number to signify it as a sequel.
It is.
Really?
Yeah.
It is.
Holy shit, that's the
Yeah.
best trivia I've ever heard on one of our podcasts.
Yeah, not only a number,
Yeah.
but Roman numerals as well. Like,
Incredible.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that would go on to inspire the Friday the 13th series? That's amazing. Same studio, though,
Yeah.
Paramount.
Yeah,
so
that's,
you know.
that's true.
How
That's true. So
unusual.
that's just
Wow.
a
It's
cool fact
fascinating.
in itself.
It
Because
is.
and now we've come to a point where they rarely use any numbers.
I know, yeah, it's
I miss
heartbreaking.
them. I miss the
do,
numbers.
I miss it too.
Do you prefer the numbers or the Roman numerals?
I like the Roman numerals
Same,
because regardless of whether I can't figure it out.
Yeah, because you get to number 11 and you're like,
You're
what the fuck
what?
am I about to?
Is it the X before the I before the X? Yeah, no, I love the Roman numerals.
Thank
Right.
God, thank God Bond never had any numerals, mate.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was back. Yeah, they liked that Bond thing. You give a new film a different title, which
True.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I much prefer the part.
Studio didn't want the number 2, but at this point in time, Coppola had free reign
Yeah.
on this baby because
Wow.
of the strength of number 1.
Yeah.
Won the Oscar. It sort of it
One
bought
Khan,
him
with the
one Khan.
conversation.
Yeah, that's right. So they gave him autonomy.
Yeah.
I think there's a few moments throughout the production they regretted giving him autonomy because he's sort of
Yeah.
very indulgent with this one. But
Of course.
yeah, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think anything else you want to add to number 2?
Whoa.
You want to add like
Oh yeah, I
truckloads,
could go
man.
on forever.
Fucking do it.
Let's be honest.
Do it.
I mean, where do I begin? Well, actually, what do you think of Lee Strasberg? What do you think of the villain in this one, Hyman Roth? How does he stack up to Solozzo?
Pulling out.
If I
We
can
asked-
make
we
it
asked- we asked you to talk, not ask us questions.
Look,
okay.
This is precisely why we got you on the show
Yeah.
because as
Yeah.
I open with like we're out of our depths with this
Okay.
one.
I can just
No, that's a great question.
I can free ball here. Maybe not free ball, but
Well, where's
kind of
Archie? Where's
podcast.
Archie?
Yeah.
Fuck, you've stumped us, dude.
Yeah, that's
Well, how
tricky.
about this? In terms of Pacino's performance,
Mhm.
do you think this is greater than part 1?
Absolutely.
So do I.
Yeah.
I think it's the
absolutely.
greatest. I mean,
Yeah.
I always go on about the Oscars. I know they mean nothing, but that just really pisses me off that he did not win the Oscar for that.
Who won the Oscar?
Art
that year?
Carney for Harry and Tonto.
Wow. It's always that way, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Oh, damn. But
Yeah.
yeah, look, I mean, and we should also say that this is
Yeah.
one of the few films that's won Oscar back to back.
That's it. Well, I think it's the only where the original and the sequel have both won an Oscar.
Wow.
I mean, it really is.
Number 3 was nominated.
It was nominated, which people
Got,
tend to
got
forget.
quite a few.
Yeah,
Oscar
imagine if that had
nominations,
have won Best Supporting Actress for Sofia Coppola.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
We're gonna get to that.
Yeah. I mean, what's to say? Let's talk about. Maybe we can touch on. I think one thing I do like about the film is how it goes to Cuba, and that really, I think it's just a real clever tap into the time of what was happening there with the revolution, and I think it really highlights Michael's sort of smarts. You know that scene where he's kissed Fredo at the party and the president's saying, I'm done, I'm resigning. And he's
Yeah.
the first to leave.
Yeah.
It's like you see that shot of him on the steps and he's the first person. It just like sums up his character. He's just one step ahead of everyone else.
Absolutely. Like
So
he was already aware when he's
Yeah.
seen some small sort of altercation in the street, and that's enough for him to go, is everything
That's
okay
it.
here? Because
Yeah.
he's very suspicious and
Yeah.
aware.
I just love those little touches. I mean, there's just some countless incredible scenes in there, isn't there? Like all that stuff with Fredo and Cuba's great. Obviously,
If Fredo hadn't run, do you think he still would have killed Fredo? Or do you think
that-
part of it is that he evaded him for so long and it made him look bad too, so that, he had to?
I think that's a good question.
It's tough to know. Because like he does give him the heads up, like, I got a plan, I'm leaving. If
That's
you want to
it.
get out of here, come with me sort of thing.
Yeah.
And
I reckon, I don't think he would have killed him initially. I think it's just
No.
that hardening of the heart, isn't it? I think after Kay leaves, that happens before, doesn't it? Yeah, I really think that's kind of finishes him off.
That's a hard scene
Yeah,
where
with
she
the
comes to
abortion.
visit. Well, when she comes to visit, and
Yeah.
the children, they're not allowed to talk to her, and the son's sort of like
Yeah.
apprehensive to even acknowledge her, and then he's just completely cold
Yeah.
to her, like shuts the door in her face, and it's just like this man's changed, like just beyond comprehension.
Well, you haven't even talked about Diane Keaton.
No, we haven't.
We haven't
which
talked
is-
about those eyebrows of hers.
Oh,
Her
it's
finest-
weird, man.
So unusual.
Weird, but
Very hard.
Diane's finest movies.
Well, second Annie Hall reference
I was
we've
gonna
made
say, yeah.
in this, because that's one of the other conversations we constantly have is Woody Allen.
That's
But,
it. Yeah.
Yeah, so Diane Keaton in this one, I think she's a very understated performance in these films.
Yeah.
I think you can easily overlook her. I think
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
doesn't on the surface add much.
No.
But I think if you actually get stuck into the character, I think there's quite a lot more going on.
Absolutely. Well, she's his conscience,
Yeah.
isn't she? Like, Branno doesn't have that.
Right from her first scene.
Yeah. Whereas Branno does not have that. His wife is just... She'd happily just turn the other cheek and smash the pasta.
But
you know?
there's that constant promise that I will go legitimate, I will go legitimate.
That's it,
and sort of, and she holds on to that hope that that's going to happen and never does.
Yeah.
Well, kind of almost does.
Yeah, that's it.
But it's too late. She's gone.
She's gone, yeah. I mean, that scene where she goes, I had an abortion, that's an incredible scene.
Oh, God,
Pacino's face, you just like melt a brick wall.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, mate.
But the one thing, maybe the only thing that I would change about part 2, and it's not a fault, is Frank Pantangeli. That character was supposed to be Clemenza, and I think that would have been great to see that character arc from part 1 to part 2, where he betrays the family and then goes back on his word at the Senate hearing. So I think the actor, Richard Castellano, he wanted to write his own lines.
Oh,
and
right,
Coppola just said,
Who says that to Coppola?
I know. And Coppola just went, I can't do that. I'm just going to rewrite you as a different character. I think that would have been fascinating to see Clemenza all the way through. But apart from that, I don't fault it, really. But, I mean, he's Michael V. Gazzo. I mean, he's great in it. But it would have been great, I think, to have Clemenza there. But, I mean, you get him in the De Niro scenes. What do you think of De Niro in the role?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Oh, no, I think
he's great. It's a great performance.
Fantastic, yeah. It's funny because after watching it, I had spoken to a friend at work and said, geez, it's great watching Rob De Niro, in this peak of his career when he played roles that were characters, but they weren't, that's, a De Niro character. That's a character that De Niro is playing, like a Travis Bickle or like, what's his name in King of Comedy?
Rupert Pumpkin.
Yeah. Like adopting characters and playing them, not playing De Niro.
Yeah.
And it's exceptional, like watching him just going, fuck, this is a guy that is like at his peak in his career, just killing it. Killing it. And I know that with age and reputation and everything else, that's an impossible thing. You can't escape the fact that you're that actor that did this and that and that, and you get typecast for doing these particular films, and you got to play against time and do those comedies and things. And why doesn't he do these types? It's tough, but watching these films from that period when he was just on fire with films.
I think the influence of his character in this one too has sort of permeated through cinema as well. And
Yeah.
this is a massive bow to sort of stretch, right? But I think Daniel Day-Lewis in Gangs of New York is it's very De Niro in itself, right?
Yeah.
That character.
Yeah.
Well,
It
De
is.
Niro was supposed to play that character, but I think the setting as well is very, very similar. They're years apart, but
Yeah.
the tone of that, I think, is very, very influenced.
Well, Coppola didn't want to direct part 2. He wanted Scorsese to direct it. Actually.
Really?
Yeah. So he said, he went to Paramount and said, I want this guy to do it. And they said, no way. So he actually, it could have been a Scorsese picture.
So that's 74. What had Scorsese done at
He
that
just
point?
done Mean Streets.
Yeah,
And
right.
he did Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore at 74, didn't
But
he?
still, coming off the back of Mean Streets, that's a big ask.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Imagine if he had
totally.
done it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, isn't it? And I think De Niro got that role because he auditioned for Sonny. Have you seen his audition for Sonny?
No.
It's insane. You should. I want him to finish it with
Yeah,
YouTube.
yeah.
But that's why he's a psycho.
Yeah.
And Coppola said I just couldn't use it just because he was too psychotic. But it was amazing.
Yeah, right.
So I kept him in the back of my mind for Brando's character.
And isn't it funny with all of the recent anniversary interviews that have, the Today shows and all this, the driving force has been De Niro. And he's
Yeah,
not
I
even
know.
in the first
He's
film.
not even in the first one.
But
No,
he's
you're
the one
right.
leading that celebration.
Yeah.
Coppola
Yeah.
won't have anything to do with it.
No.
But there you've got De Niro taking Coppola's place.
Yeah.
Championing this reunion. It's only of the first one too, these interviews. So you've
Right,
got,
okay.
mostly anyway.
Yeah,
You've got
Khan
Duval there
and
and
all those boys,
yeah. It's
It
fascinating.
is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
It must be unusual for him to be attached to that character, but not be in that original film.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
If you're looking for a new Mac product, Emery Cell is the place for you. Don't throw your money away on stupidly expensive Apple gear when Emery Cell provides top-of-the-line, totally refurbished products across the Apple range. Whether you need a new iPhone, iMac, Mac Pro, iPad or other Apple products, visit Emery Cell. And if you're looking to sell your Apple gear for whatever reason, Emery Cell can offer a generous price with full data erasure, fast payment, and free shipping. Visit Emery Cell's website to see for yourself. FakeShep.net uses their products, and they wouldn't steer you wrong. Visit emerycell.com.au.
Tune in to the next episode of Rewind and Digress, where we track back to 1994 to discuss the coin-op banger turned stepchild feature film ranger, Double Dragon.
It's
got the veneer
you
of
know,
family friendly.
It does, definitely.
But a bit
definitely.
like what Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles did in that first film was it took family friendly and took a dark spin on it. And put this sort of underlining element of, what's the word? I don't know what the word is, but it's got a
Shit?
really...
No, I'm sorry, you just said it before. So.
Don't forget to rewind back to previous Rad episodes, where we discuss such classics as The Last Starfighter, Squirm, Tourist Trap, Electric Dreams, and many more. And don't forget, video games make for awesome films. Ah, fuck, scratch that last part.
Hey, Glenn, let me ask you a question. Who had Frankie Pantangeli killed?
Phil. The Rosanna brothers.
Who gave the order?
This. There was this kid I grew up with. He was younger than me, sort of looked up to me, you know. Glenn. We did our first work together. Worked our way up the streets. Things were good, we made the most of it. I gotta change. During Prohibition, we ran molasses into Canada. Made a fortune.
You ran molasses to Canada. You should run some brains to your head.
Dumbest question of the episode. Where do we stand on Godfather 3? And can you please share your first memories of it?
Yeah, okay. I can, yes. So, Video Easy again, I remember getting it. So, I'd seen the first two. So, I watched it. I remember my first viewing at 11. I remember watching, the first time I watched part 2, as I said, it's quite ambiguous. It takes a couple of watches, doesn't it? Part 3 is probably more immediate. It's probably easier to watch.
Mainstream.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it's not as demanding. So I remember watching it and enjoying it. I think by the end of the film, I can't really remember my initial impressions. I remember it didn't make as much impact on me as the first two.
So one of my biggest flaws in general with films is I hold on to nostalgia.
Okay.
So how I felt watching films when I was young, I quite often hold on to that impression. You enjoyed it when you were young and you watched it at that age. Like, have you held on to any of that?
No.
Oh, good.
So I tell you what, I watched it again recently.
Oh, shit.
And I think I've said this to you before, Glenn.
Yeah.
I think if it was a standalone film, unrelated, it would work. It's got some good scenes, I think. It's got some good performances. It's got some interesting stuff. I think in context of the first two, I think if you watch it directly after the first two is when it really suffers.
Really jarring.
For me, it doesn't even feel like canon, to be honest. It doesn't feel like it's part of that same universe.
Yeah, right. Doesn't Coppola call it his epilogue? Like that's
He does.
He doesn't consider it a sequel anymore?
Yeah, and he didn't want to call it part 3. He wanted to call it The Death of Michael Corleone.
Oh, that's right. I did read that.
They said no way, which is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, to me,
all that power they gave him over number 2, they took back for number 3.
That's it. He didn't have it.
He'd made some other things in the meantime when it was great.
But I mean, look, I have lots to say about this, but
feel free to say it. I mean, Jarrett, before we move on, your overall...
my sort of look. I saw it when it came out on video.
Yeah.
By that point, I'd obviously seen 1 and 2, and it was the first of the films that wasn't rated R. Funnily enough, I think it was rated M when it came out. And it's evident when you rewatch the film because it's nowhere near as graphic in its violence. I mean, there's violence in it, but there's not.
For
the
example,
violence,
that
the
massacre scene with the helicopter.
Yeah.
If that was in the first 2 films,
you would
there'd
have
be blood everywhere.
Blood everywhere. Like I mean, and again, like I will give it credit. That did sound incredible in surround.
it would have.
I actually think that's a great sequence.
That's probably the best sequence.
Yeah. It's a good scene. It's imaginative.
Yeah, it's great. It comes out of nowhere, and it's great watching sort of them escape. And again, that Pacino having that knowledge to go, okay, we've got to get out of here. You know, he's the first one out with Garcia.
Yeah.
When I first saw it on video as a kid, I don't as much as I had always loved film. Obviously, I wasn't as educated in terms of knowing film technique and appreciating grades on films and things like that. So I don't think I noticed a visual difference. With it. I just found it was like a bit more of a drag to watch as a kid. Like it felt like definitely more of a drama than anything else. Like I mean, not that they're not, but like it just felt like there was just a lot of talking.
Yeah.
And so I never really held it in a super high regard, but I did have a massive crush on Sofia Coppola at the time. Like when I was, when I saw her in the film, I loved it. But I also did have a massive crush around that same time on Tori Spelling because she was Beverly Hills 90210, which makes a lot of sense because I've watched this film maybe twice since I first saw it, and this would have been the 4th time that I've ever seen it, and I don't really find her that attractive anymore. Nor do I find Tori Spelling that attractive anymore. Nor do I think she's very good in the. I mean, she's great in Peggy Sue Got Married. Her part's very small.
I think
as
she's
Kathleen Turner's
terrible
sister.
in this one.
She is absolutely. Apart from the character that having this incestuous sort of family relationship, which is just kind of fucking weird.
Yep.
And doesn't really belong in this franchise. Her acting is just
Actually,
abysmal.
I
She's
guess-
like such a bratty little girl,
Yeah.
and her performance is just so.
Wooden.
It just brings everyone else down.
She's
like
out of
she's
her
on
depth.
screen with Pacino, and it just brings him
I
down.
was going to say, I think her performance alone brings this down
Yeah.
big time. Like this, I would argue that this does have a place in the trilogy. Obviously, I have much
Maybe
more
it's a
affection
TV
for it.
movie. I think it wouldn't have been so bad.
But I mean, obviously, it's the inferior. Clearly, it came 16 years later. It opened lackluster opening sequence. You got the first two with this powerful opening, and this one has what, a fucking voiceover of a letter that he's reading to his children, and the flashbacks to Lake Tahoe and all this kind of stuff. It's instantly like, okay, we're in for something completely inferior.
Yeah.
But you know what? I love the additions to this. I love the casting. I love Garcia.
Do you like that? Okay, that's
I think-
fair enough.
'cause I
Peter
think Garcia
Garcia's-
belongs in
He's
this
a talented
franchise.
actor, and I think he
Garcia's
never
great.
quite got the credit he deserved. He did
Yeah.
a run of great films.
He
and
did.
He's such a great actor,
Yeah.
and he's great in this, and I'm with you all the way on that one.
Because I think he's the star of this film.
Absolutely.
Right, yeah, undoubtedly, yeah.
Absolutely.
But I'm curious to see who else you think's a good addition to the cast.
Well, okay. John Savage. He's not a huge player in
Right,
it.
okay, that's
but I
fine.
love,
Yeah, yeah.
I love John
I'll give you
Savage. George Hamilton.
No, God, no.
I actually-
he has no place in the
I just-
Godfather
Bizarre,
universe
isn't
because
it?
he's such a TV sort of, such a hammy type actor. He's like a leather suitcase of a kind of guy.
He is, but I think
it's so weird
I
in
think
this.
his character in this. I mean, obviously he's replacing
Hagen.
Duvall,
Robert
right?
Duvall, and it's such a poor substitute because I mean Robert Duvall's such a
but
great
Duvall wouldn't
actor.
come back. He just wouldn't come back.
because the money.
Yeah, that's
he
it.
wasn't happy.
Yeah.
Pacino was getting paid 5 times
That's
what
it.
he was, and he
Yeah.
said maybe 2-3 times, but
Yeah.
5
He
times is
did,
ridiculous.
yeah,
I won't
he
come
did.
back. Yeah, everyone's doing it for the money. And I would have come back if they gave me the
That's
money.
it, yeah.
I like that. But then he
That's
goes
a
in to
great
say,
clip.
And there's that great video where
such
he's
a good clip.
Yeah, it is.
You're like, Google,
When
why didn't he return? And that clip comes up. It's like, I've watched it twice.
Was this the one with Larry King? And he says,
No, it's Bob
No.
Costa.
Well, the one with
Yeah.
Larry King, though, when he's asked about it, he goes, Coppola came to my house, asked me if I'd be in it. I said no, and we ate crab cakes. My mother's recipe, they were delicious.
so good.
And that's it. That's and he goes, and that's that story.
Bloke, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, like he's like, because it's it's an interesting
Well,
premise.
I
I don't
do-
know if they pulled it off, but
I do like George Hamilton. I don't think he's in it enough to distract from it. I kind of like.
No, that's
I
fair.
like his coolness, sitting at the table with his glasses on, just sort of dealing with the charities and the legal side of things. I kind of like it.
He represents that new
I
world.
don't think Bridget Fonda's too out of place. I like her.
Oh,
in
yeah,
it.
her also sort of
It is,
minor.
but
and,
she kind of doesn't look like she shouldn't be in The Godfather
No.
either. Like she kind
she
of.
looks too contemporary.
I
Like,
don't know. And Joe Mantegna.
Yeah, I don't know. That guy's I don't mind him.
No, but take it in the context of when this was made.
Oh yeah, no,
he
I
hadn't
appreciate
become
that.
He hadn't become
Oh,
that
no, it's
caricature
true.
that we know.
Yeah.
him from
Oh,
The
it's true.
Simpsons
Like
and all
one of the
this.
things I love about him is a film he did, David Mamet film, Things Change,
Yeah.
with Don Amici in 1988, and it's a mafiosa film, and it's Don Amici's brought in because he looks like a double, and they keep him because they want to make it look like this guy's doing that, and he can take the fall for this, and it's a brilliant performance. And I've always had a soft spot for him, but I've always considered him kind of like a second tier sort of actor.
Yeah.
I think we've got so much amazing talent in Godfather 1 and 2, and then you kind of got these guys that are like, I don't know, at the time they may have been potentially the next big things, but I sort of feel like, time hasn't been kind. And so I look back and go, oh, these are kind of like B actors in what should have been an A movie, and I don't know if,
Yeah, I
don't
agree.
know.
It
And I
feels-
can't separate them from,
Yeah.
who they are to the character they're playing.
It feels like Coppola tried to pick the next bunch of and failed.
Up and coming, yeah.
As if he was
Fine.
remaking.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
No, that's fair.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, Sophia Coppola was originally offered to Julia Roberts the role,
Yeah.
and then Winona Ryder.
When Renee, she pulled out like a day before filming.
See,
or
that's
something.
crazy because
Yeah.
I think she would have been remarkable. in
She
that.
would have been great.
It would have been, but it's her own doing.
It is.
Obviously, but
Well,
yeah,
it
it's a
wasn't. It
shame.
was scheduling, wasn't it? But I mean, she had agreed up until the last
What was
minute.
she doing at the time?
I don't know if she was
Yeah.
ill or I don't know.
Mermaids?
Huh?
Mermaids, maybe? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I know. It would have been maybe around the Edward Scissorhands time.
Yeah.
Probably around
Yeah,
that era.
Could have been a smart decision. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that role is incredible. I
Yeah,
fucking
that's
love
right.
her.
That's right.
that's it.
Love that movie.
And of course, he cast her in Dracula
He did.
because he really wanted to put her in something.
And
so.
she was great in that.
Yeah, she
Actually,
was.
I only rewatched that film 2 weeks ago, and God, I didn't
great
enjoy
film.
that film when I saw it at the movies. I saw it when it first opened in the cinema, but I was a massive horror kid,
Yeah.
so watching it, it was a lot of drama and a lot of visual effects and things that I just thought were tacky. As a kid, I thought that was tacky, and then watching it now, I was like, God, that looks spectacular.
Yeah.
And
And they're
like,
practical.
it's
Most of them are
really-
some digital, but mostly
really
practical.
spectacular, and it is a really good film.
It's
Gary
probably-
Oldman is phenomenal.
It's
in it.
probably
Yeah.
Coppola's most experimental film, I think. Like
Yeah.
you'd probably
Oh,
argue Apocalypse Now.
I haven't seen Twixt,
Or Part Two.
so I can't say Twixt.
Oh, you
I
haven't
heard
seen
is a-
Twixt?
No, I heard that's
Oh.
pretty out there.
I've heard that's
Yeah.
pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Man, well, my reputation's been sullied already, man. I like Twix.
Yeah.
I was fucking
Right,
good.
fair
Like,
enough, fair enough.
I didn't love it. I like it. You know, it's
right up your
gothic.
alley,
It's
mate.
gothic. It is, mate. It is. Elle Fanning and
That's it.
Val Kilmer.
Yeah, Val. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Anyway.
Best Batman. Just kidding.
But speaking of Sofia Coppola, she won 2 awards for this one.
What?
Two
Well,
Razzie
I was
Awards.
gonna say the
Razzies,
Razzie,
yeah,
of
yeah, that's
course.
it.
She won for Worst Actress and Worst New Talent.
Right, that's good.
Yeah, it is. But the film itself was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture.
Yeah.
Which do you think that's tokenistic, or do you think it was of that year fair?
Look,
I don't know what else was nominated that
And
year.
remember too, like you said, watching them back to back, clear difference.
Yeah.
16 years between. Do you think it's worthy of an Oscar nom with that space of time between them?
Sure.
And cinema landscapes changed and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
I know what you're saying. It may have been for the overall
You
achievement.
don't have to like sugarcoat it.
No,
too,
I'm not.
like-
I'm just trying to think. Like, I can see why it got nominated
Yeah.
at the time.
Is it tokenistic or is it actually?
Probably, I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I should answer. I think they looked at the overall achievement and went, all right. Well, he's done a decent. He's come back.
It's called The Godfather.
Yeah, we'll give it
Yeah.
some nominations. I don't know if it came out before Goodfellas or after, like in terms of the year.
Same year.
Yeah,
they were both
yeah,
nominated
that's
for
it.
Best Picture.
What-
I've just looked it up because
whereas-
I wanted to get a feel of what was nominated that
'Cause
year.
I think Goodfellas totally blows it away, and I think
yeah.
if Goodfellas had come out in the months prior, it may have put it in a bit more,
Yeah.
in its proper light.
Yeah.
So. I don't know, but if you compare, they're different films, but
Yeah,
if we're talking gangster movies of the year, it
Yeah.
doesn't come close.
Well, in
Mind
your
you, neither one won Best Picture.
No,
Dances
your
with
mate,
Wolves won that year.
Kevin.
Which, you
Yeah.
know, I think's a great film.
It is a great film.
Yeah,
Very
incredible
great
film.
film.
Awakenings always.
Oh.
Sorry, I don't know what I'm saying.
Penny Marshall?
Awakenings was also nominated for Best Picture, so De Niro got
This is a
two
De Niro
two De Niro
domination,
films.
mate.
The
No
last one
Goodfellas.
was Ghost. So you were spot on with seeing the poster, going to
Yeah.
see Ghost and seeing the poster of Godfather 3.
What about
So
Exorcist 3? How's that line up?
That didn't make it to the Oscars that year. Might have
She's
maybe in Best Special Effects or something.
That's because
but
George
yeah.
was in it. He didn't make it.
What a shame.
Very underrated film.
yeah.
Oh man, there you go. Look, Best Director, Costner obviously won for Dances with Wolves. Coppola was up for Godfather 3. Scorsese with Goodfellas. Stephen Frears was up for The Grifters, which is one of my all-time
Wow.
favourite films.
Wow.
Daniel
Yeah.
Day-Lewis, yeah?
No,
Is that Angelica?
Yeah, Angelica Houston. John Cusack.
Oh, of course. And it's got that poster
and
with
what's
all
her
of
name?
them on the...
Oh my lord, I can't remember. Yeah, Annette Bening.
Ah, yeah,
Annette,
right.
yeah.
Exceptional movie.
This would have been hot off of, what, Great Outdoors?
Yeah, actually it was, because Great Outdoors would have been 88, 89, so yeah, not far
go.
off. Yeah,
Let's go.
not far off. Look, one major problem I sort of have with The Godfather 3 outside of Sofia Coppola's performance is, and like, because you're a bit of an expert on this, Keith, is, I don't know, they've given Pacino too much dialogue. I feel like he's always talking throughout this movie, and we've gone from this character that's
Yeah.
sort of like very brooding, only, sort of speaks when, it's necessary, or... And like he's always talking in this movie all the
agree.
time and arguing and bickering with his daughter. And
Do you think that's because he's in a position where he's trying to negotiate his way out of the crime world?
Possibly?
Maybe.
I
I don't know. I mean,
Could
even
have he
when
done it with gestures?
Even when, yeah, that's it.
Other characters? I don't
It's
know.
just that death stare.
Yeah.
Even how he swears. Yeah, when he swears at Joey Zaza.
Out of character.
I'm like, that is not Michael Corleone. I actually think it's more Francis Ford Coppola than it is Michael Corleone.
Yeah,
I think
right.
the film's. I got a theory that's more reflective of his own life at that time, his
Yeah.
career. Obviously, his daughter dies in the film. I know his son died
recently.
Right, okay,
I don't know. I
Yeah.
see no Michael Corleone in that movie.
Yeah, yeah.
That's my major.
He's got that one moment where they pull me back in.
That's it.
I know,
That's
yeah.
a great line.
It's a good
It's
line.
the really quotable one
It's
line.
like that
Yeah,
disappointing.
It was on the trailer.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah.
It's like that.
It's ingrained in pop culture now too.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
It's that disappointing third album that's got that one banger.
yeah, totally.
That's it.
Totally.
But I think that my biggest problem with it is that characterization of Michael, the dialogue. Obviously, he changed his appearance, but it's more about how he speaks, how he acts. I just see no evidence of the character from the first two whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
no,
seems like a
fair
different
call, fair
guy.
call. What do you think of his appearance? Like, it's
Yeah,
strange.
the straight hair.
I didn't mind so much. I think that they did an incredible job of sort of aging him up. I mean, they did a phenomenal job at the end of Godfather 2 to make him look older. But
What would
I
have-
think that was really well done because I had to look and go, but Pacino would have only
Cardigans.
been this age, and how's he? Oh, wow, that's really
All
well
you got to
done.
do is throw a cardigan on him. eh?
Yeah, throw a cardigan and grey his hair.
What would it have taken to make Godfather 3 a great film?
They
good
would have had to
question.
have made it back in the 70s, maybe.
I
Yeah,
reckon,
not left so much time so the expectation
I think you
wasn't
nailed
there.
it on
and
the
had a
head,
strong
though.
script.
They wrote the first draft in '79.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it
So,
could have been.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think you nailed it on the head. I think if you got rid of all that dialogue from Pacino and given more of that to Garcia,
Yeah.
had the switch of generation, I
Yeah.
think that might have been a better story.
I would have focused it on Garcia.
Possibly his character, Garcia's character, is probably a bit too full on immediately. Like
Yeah.
comes on just fucking
Comes on strong.
guns blazing.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think if they'd done a slow burn with his trajectory, that might have been a better way to look at it. He
Yeah.
was in an interview recently we talked about where he talked about Godfather 4
Part
and
four.
he's like, I am the Godfather. He goes, if you think about it, he goes, I am the Godfather.
Yeah.
I think
Right,
he
yeah,
loves that
yeah,
knowledge
yeah.
that he's the Godfather
And he
right
can
now.
he can take that to the grave. Like,
Yeah. Well, did they do the? I guess I'm probably
Yeah,
jumping
well-
ahead, aren't I?
No. Well, we're done. We're done with
So
the
there was a
Godfather
TV movie, The Last On. Was that the next step? No, there's
No,
something
based
else.
on Mario Puzo books,
Right,
but
okay.
completely separate
Right, something
series.
else.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I say one thing about part 3 that pisses
Most
me
certainly.
off?
Yeah.
And that is Connie. Man, she
Yes.
pisses me off in that. I just do not buy her as like this sort of Kappa regime or like
Yep.
Lieutenant Don. I think
Yeah, like she's reformed and now she is.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You look at the first one.
Yeah.
Michael kills her husband, and she
Yeah.
like spends years trying to get over it. She comes back, and then I just do not buy it that he would kill Frodo, and she would be fine with it. One, I don't buy
Yeah,
that
true.
she would believe him, and two, that she would be there.
Because she was so desperate to get him back into the
That's it,
family
yeah.
as well,
It-
to work him back in there.
It just makes
Yeah.
zero sense for
Yeah.
me on a storyline. So
Speaking of, like
yeah.
with the killing of Fredo, and I mentioned it earlier on, is that in this film he's all about the regret.
That's
that
it,
came with
yeah.
that. I think that's played a little too hard.
Yeah.
Like it's almost melodramatic.
Yeah.
When he's talking about, because he actually says it out loud. He's
Yeah,
like,
I know.
I killed my brother.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's too forced.
Yeah.
That's
for
it.
sure.
I agree. And like part 2 dealt with that. You see him where he should be alone,
Mm.
and he knows it. It's just and yet no dialogue, nothing. It's just a 10-second shot that accomplishes more than 2.5 hours in this film.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like I guess the first two are like a Monet, and the third one's like a Picasso, mate. Just fucking throw it at the
Yeah.
wall.
Oh, the third
Ken Dome.
Ken Dome.
Ken
The
Dome.
third one's are like the third one's a blurry
Roma?
Polaroid of the Monet.
Yeah.
But it does feel like an imitation. Like he went away from what made him great as a filmmaker, at least in terms of this story.
Yeah.
I
It's
feel.
just too long between drinks. It's a
Yeah.
hard thing
It's
to
a long
recapture,
time.
isn't
Did
it?
it for the cash.
time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, that pretty much takes it to the end of Godfather 3. Let's talk about Godfather 4 for a moment.
Yeah.
It was almost made just before Mario Puzo died, and it was said to feature Andy Garcia as the residing Godfather, with a lot of the original cast, including De Niro, Duvall, and Talia Shire, with the addition of Leonardo DiCaprio, who
Wow,
was supposed to be the younger Sonny.
Sunny.
So
Okay.
these are all people that had expressed their interest in returning. So they had said, yeah,
Right,
we will
right.
consider this.
Yeah.
Strange that Sofia Coppola wasn't talked about
No,
flashbacks or
she was gonna
too
direct
dead.
it.
Yeah. Well, actually, that would have
Yeah.
been probably
Better.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that Coppola would toy with the idea of a fourth one when he so publicly dissed the third.
Yeah. Well, I think Pacino said that it's just like a topic that he can't help but Coppola can't help but go back to. Like he
Yeah.
denies it,
Yeah.
but there's just something in him that
Well,
he can't
he's-
help it.
He's never really recaptured that kind of
No.
filmmaking essence, has he?
No.
No,
It's sort of a
post-apo-
clutch for glory.
That's it. Post-apocalypse is just a different man.
Probably
Yeah.
just thinking
Yeah.
all that If only I'd made the Deer Hunter.
With the exception of Peggy Sue Got Married.
Or Tucker.
Tucker.
Oh, Tucker.
What a
I only
film.
revisited that
Yeah.
less than a year ago. What an incredible
great film.
movie. Incredible movie.
Before
Underappreciated.
I move on to my final subject, let's quickly round off the movies that Coppola's made outside of The Godfather. Let's say outside of Apocalypse Now, because we know how you feel about that, Keith. What are some of your favourite Coppola films outside of those magnum opus titles?
So I'm not allowed to mention The Conversation.
Yeah, of course you are.
Yeah, well then The Conversation. I'd say that's an amazing film. I mean, it's rated highly. It's a classic, isn't it? But it's not probably... It hasn't entered pop culture like those other three.
No, not quite,
It's
no.
an incredible film.
Unless you consider Enemy of the State.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, true.
Like an unofficial sequel, I guess. That's an incredible film. Hackman is amazing. Again, it taps into that.
I
you
miss
know-
Hackman.
Yeah, he's what an
Likewise.
actor. He's
Yeah.
Likewise.
just almost my favourite actor.
I'm waiting
ever.
for Welcome to Mooseport 2. That'd
Yeah.
be nice.
Yeah. Yeah, so is Ray Romano.
Superman. Return as Lex Luthor.
Oh, shit.
But no, I love The Conversation. That's a great film. I think that it's smaller scale, but it holds up to those other three great ones.
Yeah.
Tucker again is another great film. You know, it's he was in that different era of film, like different
Absolutely.
phase. It's almost like his ambitions had changed. Like I think Apocalypse Now, he went. I think that's what the great thing about Coppola is his ambition. Like just part two, Godfather, they're really ambitious films, and he pulls it off. And I think after that, he was just gun shy. So he just, you know, just Rumblefish Outsiders, just small scale. So he doesn't thrive in that for me. But I think, he's made some good stuff since. Tucker's great. Now that would be the one for me post 70s that really stands out.
What about you?
Well, Peggy Sue Got Married, but it's a different kettle of fish. It's just such an oddball sort of film for them to have made, particularly after Rumblefish and Outsiders. But I love Outsiders also. And then Tucker, I guess the trouble really for me is that sort of the 90s for him as a filmmaker outside of like Dracula, which I only revisited recently and really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Post that, it's like,
What about,
I don't know. I haven't seen Jack yet. The Rainmaker left no memory in me. Like, I think, that was based off a novel by...
Grisham, wasn't it?
Yeah, John Grisham.
It essentially plays out very much like an Aaron Brockovich type of film.
I wasn't even aware that he made that. I've seen that. I'm like, no.
It's a good film.
Yeah.
Like you watch, it's a good movie. We only use the word film.
Yeah,
it's a good
absolutely.
movie. It's like a Sunday afternoon. You're on the couch, you watch that.
Yeah.
Mickey Rourke makes his grand return in that. It's a good movie in itself. But if you were to say that's a Francis Ford Coppola film, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I was stunned.
Yeah, absolutely. And that came the year after Jack. And Jack was, I guess that's a massive redemption after Jack, though, when you consider
Still
it.
haven't seen it.
Yeah, I know.
I'll get there.
You'll love it.
Yeah. I mean, you just watch Jack for the Robin Williams factor alone.
Yeah,
that's it.
He made Captain EO as well, that Michael Jackson.
Oh, the thing that was at Disneyland
Yeah.
back in the day.
Really?
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Yeah. So, interesting.
Yeah.
He also championed the return of Victor Salva and produced a whole lot of horror films.
Of course, because the Americans,
He
the
did.
Tropa, they
Yeah.
were producing. He produced, did he?
So after Dracula, he got
Yeah.
stuck into horrors
Right.
like Frankenstein,
Jeepers
Jeepers
Creepers.
Creepers,
Yeah.
which was the Slava factor.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, because he's big on the producing.
And I think
front.
he might have produced Clown House, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
the first of
Yeah.
Victor's work.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Second of
There's the other side of it.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, now to what I really want to talk about, and I bet neither of you have watched it.
Is it Youth Without Youth? I haven't seen it.
Followed by Twixt. Big question is, did either of you guys watch The Sicilian?
No. I didn't.
I knew that would happen.
Didn't get
I
a
was going
chance.
to, but
Yeah.
that's because I thought this was happening next week.
Okay, fair enough.
So no, but I do know a little bit about it.
Okay, so a little bit of backstory for people listening. We won't spend too much time on it. The Sicilian is based on a book that Mario Puzo wrote as a spin-off from The Godfather. So technically, in literature terms, it is part of The Godfather series and legacy.
Oh,
On
right.
film, they removed all references to Michael Corleone. And so it now, I guess, resides in that universe just without his character. It was directed in 1987 by Michael Cimino, who had done
Of course, Deer Hunter.
The Deer Hunter again.
Yeah.
You know, and I guess that's the
Heaven's
one.
Gate.
But
Yeah.
Deer Hunter's the one film that sort of, I guess maybe gives the false impression that he's one of the great titans of Hollywood.
Right. Yeah.
Would you say it's a false impression?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, The Deer Hunter's a great film, but it's like,
Yeah.
even Ray Charles gets one in the hoops,
Oh shit, man. Well, this one, it's a massive misfire. It was a very ambitious kind of thing to do. It stars Christopher Lambert, John Turturro, Terence Stamp, Joss Eklund, amongst others. Good caliber of cast. Very ambitious attempt here.
Yeah.
The story takes place in 1950s Sicily, which is where the first film took place when Michael went back.
Of course, yeah.
So that was the era that this happens. And it focuses on an outlaw called Salvador Giuliano. who's a revolutionist and a murderer who attempts to liberate Sicily from Italy's rule to make it an American state. It's a very Robin Hood figure type of thing. It's a true character that actually existed in real life. Interesting thing about the backstory of this one, which I'm sure Keith knows about, even though you haven't watched it. Michael Cimino is famous for throwing tantrums with the studio and being a very difficult guy to work with. Fox demanded that the film would be cut when he delivered it. He threw one of the biggest, most infamous tantrums, declaring there was nothing left to trim. Fox persisted, insisted that he cut it, and he returned a week later with a really short version where he removed all of the action sequences.
Yeah.
He took them out entirely, which they were the set pieces, right? He removed them all, but contractually, that's all he had to do, and Fox had to release that version.
Yeah. Wow. The 120-minute cut.
The 120-minute cut, so it's got no action. And that was his fuck you to the studio, which is hilarious in itself. And that's the one that made the DVDs up until the recent sort of director's cut, which in itself isn't actually a director's cut because he wasn't really alive to oversee that. It's sort of as best they could get to it.
Interesting,
Yeah, but the studio were furious, with how that panned out.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's not where the film went wrong. Christopher Lambert as a lead character in a Godfather,
He's
environment.
not really known for performance.
He has no depth. John Turturro, on the other hand, had put him in the lead. He would have been amazing.
He would have been great.
He would have been amazing.
Yeah.
But originally, Cimino wanted Daniel Day-Lewis to play the lead.
Right.
But the studio said he's a nobody.
Wow.
And
Oh, wow.
So we won't
Would
worry
have
about
broken him ahead of, what was it, the Foot movie? My Left Foot?
My Left Foot.
Yeah. Would have broken him ahead of that.
that. Would you argue he went full retard in that?
Well, yeah, if you can only use one
yeah.
foot, that's pretty, it's pretty retarded.
Getting around in a wheelbarrow. Yeah.
What a performance, man.
Yeah. But I think it's okay because that was his breakout role.
Yeah.
If you'd done it mid-career, it might have been...
But watching it recently, like I was telling Keith prior to watching it, like I had fond memories of it and I was very excited to sort of watch something that was supposed to be Godfather that never quite worked out. So I went in with these high anticipations and expectations, and the music is so fucking comical in this movie that immediately before Christopher Lambert opens his mouth with a French accent, like the movie itself is comical. You got this music's like they come trotting in on horses, and the music's like dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, wow.
You're like, wow. Like, can you imagine if that had been Michael Corleone walking into that?
That's it.
What the fuck? So it's instantly a pretty shabby film. The performances outside of Christopher Lambert, I should say.
Christopher Lambert.
Yeah, Lambert. They're quite good. Terrence Stamp's good. The themes of the film with the church, the state, the mob, awesome.
Yeah.
Apparently on the set, the mob actually controlled all of the locations they were filming at.
Wow.
So they were under mob rule while they were filming,
Wow.
and the mob insisted on all the background players be actual mobsters and all this kind of stuff.
That's great.
So production-wise,
Creative
it's juicy.
consultants.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Well, that's it. It's a juicy film backstory-wise. It's worth looking at. I lent you the Blu-ray. You're going to watch it anyway.
I will watch
just
it, yeah.
Shits and giggles and curiosity factor.
Yeah.
But there's nothing really more to add. I would have asked if you guys had seen it, who would you have recast as, Salvador Giuliano at the time? But hard to say when you haven't seen it. I would have put maybe someone like William Hurt in there.
Yeah.
He was
fucking lovely.
Yeah.
Same here. He was an
Such a
up-and-comer.
great actor.
Even
Great
Timothy
actor.
Hutton.
Timothy
I
Hutton.
also love Timothy Hutton.
Timothy Hutton.
And
Probably
Nicolas
William
Cage,
Hurt.
I would have said at the time. Like,
Yeah.
those three were probably better choices.
Right
but,
age, yeah. So is it like stylistically, is it similar to the Godfather
Yeah,
films?
it's far closer to Godfather than number 3 is.
Okay.
It recaptures the atmosphere of those Sicily moments from the first one, but it's much more ambitious and just falls short of the mark.
Yeah.
You can tell it's mainstream.
Yeah.
Just by looking at it. But there's there are epic scenes. Like one thing that Cimino's great at is putting bang for buck on a screen. So you got these wide shots with like depth going beyond the mountains, and coming up from the mountains, you got literally tens of thousands of troops on horseback coming up and winding around the mountains into the foreground.
Yeah.
And that's practical. That's not like
Yeah.
he digitized that. Like that is
Wow.
something he
Yeah.
actually orchestrated and executed.
So it has that.
And if you watch the dailies, if you're the studio watching the dailies, you'd be like, wow, this is fucking epic. Like,
Yeah,
what have
yeah,
we got
yeah,
here, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And he hasn't told them yet that he's got some fucking play school musician that's going to add like
score it.
score it, you know? That's right.
The money ran out.
Yeah, that's it. So I think it fell apart mostly in post.
Okay.
That's where I would argue.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because I don't think any of it within the film, if you had cut it properly, other than Lambert, which is a big chunk of the fucking film. He's the lead, but
So
anyway,
if he had edited it properly, the 120 min? Could he have made a good cut, or was it just
No,
not salvageable?
because the director's cut, which is the closest they've got to it on Blu-ray, is still a schmozzle.
Yeah.
It's still
Right.
a schmozzle, but a curious schmozzle.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, look, you know.
Anyway, well, that brings us to the end of quite possibly one of our most epic podcasts. I think we were thoroughly out-Godfathered in this one.
Undoubtedly. Yeah. He raised questions that I didn't even know could have been questions. I had no answers.
And I have no doubt in my mind that we could have carried this on for 3 more hours, and
Undoubtedly.
Keith could have just done it on his own.
Yeah, I would have loved
Mate, we will have to have you back for a battle episode. Deer Hunter versus Apocalypse Now.
Should do a franchise version of Apocalypse Now with all 3 cuts. Technically, it's pretty much franchise.
Well, you could make
3
that.
cuts released 20 years apart.
You could
pretty much.
justify that.
Yeah, totally.
Keith, mate, it's been I've wanted you on this podcast for a long time. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having
It's
me.
been an absolute pleasure, and mate, you fucking
Nailed
outshone
it.
us.
Yeah, it's
Nailed
been
it.
great, guys. It's been great to talk about my 2 favourite flicks. One of my favourite directors, Big Francis. What a bloke.
Coppola came to my farm, parked his thing, came in. I cooked Maryland crab cakes for him, my mother's special recipe, because he wanted it. He wrote it down, everything like. He said, I don't know if I'm going to take the part. He left. He kept calling. He forgot the recipe. He was more concerned about getting that recipe than would I do Godfather 3.